Hi, this is Dr. Stephen with Outclick Magazine, and today we are excited to have Marti Cummings, who will be coming to our own pub on the drive. We also welcome Charles Baran. Charles, welcome, who is one of our fabulous writers. I'm going to pull you in. Charles, hello. And Marti, hello.
Hi.
Hello, Stephen. Hello, Marty.
Thank you all
Hello.
for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, we're
We
so
haven't-
excited to have you.
We haven't done this in a while, and we're excited to have you back on the Dr. Stephen Show. Before we get started, I always try to put up the date of when things are coming, and you are coming Saturday and Sunday, October 5th and 6th, 2024, to Pub on the Drive. Tell us, all right, now first of all, tell us who you are. Tell us about yourself before we get into that.
Well, the show is in just a couple days this weekend. Both shows are 8 p.m. at the pub. And like we talked about in our pre-interview, I've been doing the pub since like 2015 or 2016, and I've done Pride there for many years. I've done one-off shows there for many years, and because of like a family thing, I had to cancel my last show there, and I was so bummed. So I'm happy that I'm able to be back. I love the audiences there so much. But yeah, I've been doing drag for 16 years, and I feel like in the time that I started first working with the pub till now, I've grown so much as a performer, and I'm just really pumped to be back. It's always exciting to do an out-of-town gig at a venue where people are excited about drag.
Yeah.
So Marty, I have a question for you. For those of us who may not know Marti Cummings, tell us who Marti Cummings is.
Oh God, the $1 million question, Charles. I I never know how to answer that because it's like so like strange, like talking about yourself, right? But I'm a drag queen, so we love to talk about ourselves. But like I said, I've been doing drag for 16 years in New York City, and I've had the great honor of traveling the world as a performer and cruise director with Makaya LGBTQ Travel, which I think their Mediterranean cruise has like gone to Fort Lauderdale before. So I've been really honored to do that. I've gotten to do some really cool stuff on TV, from like when I first started drag doing 30 Rock to then doing Food Network and Drag Me to Dinner on Hulu. And but I think one of the things that makes me stand out as a drag artist is my work within the political world. So I was the first drag queen to be invited to lead a panel at the United Nations, which was wild. And I've gotten to go to the White House, and I ran for city council in 2021 as the first non-binary candidate in New York and the first drag artist to run in New York. And there's a documentary about the campaign called Queen of New York that was just on the Advocate channel and will be announced a larger streaming platform coming up. So stay tuned for that. And I'm really proud of that film and how it highlights the campaign and the work that we did around it. And so that's the Cliff Notes version of.
Well, if you had to pick one word to describe Marti Cummings, what word is she? Like brash, acerbic, bitchy? Can we say bitchy? We can.
Anxiety riddled. No, I would say exuberant. I think that's a good word. That like sums up a lot of different things.
She has a joy for life.
Yeah, we're joyful. The world's gone to shit. We have to find joy in it.
I agree totally with that. When did you first discover Marti in your life? I mean, how long you've done Marti since how long?
Well, so what's interesting, so Marti is my real name and my drag name. And so when I started doing drag, everybody asked, well, what's your drag name? What is your drag name? What is it going to be? What is it going to be? And I really thought about it, and nothing like interested me in that within the persona. And so I landed on keeping my name because I was born with the feminine spelling of the name Marti. And I thought long and hard about it. I thought, well, RuPaul's real name is RuPaul. They're the most famous drag queen in the world. So if they get to keep their name, why can't I keep my name? And yeah, and I like hated my name growing up. And so keeping it in drag like gave me an opportunity to like fall in love with the name and take ownership of it. And I started doing drag when I was very young. I'm 37 now. I started doing drag when I was very young. I was like 19 or 20. It's been my full-time job for 16 years. So it's my entire adult life basically has been this, you know?
Yeah.
And so my drag has taken like a lot of turns. Like when I first started drag, I didn't wear wigs. I was trying to do like alternative, like punk, whatever. And then it evolved. And then I was doing like a lot of like Joan Rivers style comedy that was really like, you know, that
In your face,
that Bianca Del Rio, Joan Rivers style comedy. And that worked for me for a long time. And it was a lot of fun. But then like, as I got older, I didn't connect with that as much. And I was like, that's not what I want to do. And I love watching that type of comedy. I think it's a lot of fun. But I was like, I don't resonate with that anymore. And that's what I think is so great about being an entertainer and a human being, right? Like we evolve and we change and we grow and we learn from things that we've done in our life. And so as my drag grew and as I grew and I got into politics and I started getting involved in politics, years before I ran for city council, but getting involved in politics, my drag took on from more of a persona, more into the realm of like me as a person started to intersect more with my drag life, right? Mm-hmm. And so it went from being more character to more me. And that's kind of fun because I get to bring like more of myself, not just an alter ego, but more of myself into my shows, which is really exciting, I think.
You sound, well, you've mentioned you're very political. So what are some of Marti's like really big causes? What are the ones that you really like are gung-ho about?
Well, I think right now the biggest issue for me is making sure we're protecting our trans community and our trans kids who are under attack. Like, and you know, I'm really excited to come to Florida, and we know the governor of Florida is not super great on trans issues, and
that's an understatement.
Yeah, you know, and book bans and all these like ridiculous things, and blocking gender affirming care, which is so important for trans people, and trans adults need gender affirming care also. So I think that's like such a huge issue. And so I always tell people like, yes, this presidential election is so important. And to remember, like in voting in the presidential election, we're also voting for the Supreme Court because the president selects who's going to be on the Supreme Court and then the Senate votes on it. So we have to ensure that we're protecting and making the Supreme Court one that actually works for the people. There's going to be probably 2 to 3 justices up within the next presidential cycle. So we have to not just vote for presidential, but make sure that we have a Senate and a Congress that is going to back the president for these Supreme Court things. And then look at your state elections, like in Florida, for example. And you have cities like Jacksonville now has a lesbian mayor. And so Jacksonville is slowly becoming a little bit more progressive because of their local leadership. So these local elections are so critically important, like within municipalities and on a statewide level, because a lot of these anti-trans bills, anti-education bills, and anti-healthcare bills and environment bills, all these things are being introduced on state levels. So it's really important. So that's like really what I'm trying to get out there. And then it's so funny, like I said in our pre-call, that I just performed in Alabama, and I've performed in Mobile many times before. And I performed in Florida many, many times, but I so often have, you know, people say to me, well, why do you go to those places? Like they vote red, like who cares? And my answer to them always is like, okay, well, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who live in those states that are trans and LGBTQ and immigrants and Black and Indigenous and women and whatever, you know. So we can't just say like, oh, you voted red, fuck off. No, we just say, okay, we're going to continue to fight for you so you can have the rights that you deserve.
I totally agree with you. And I think that's one of the reasons my husband and I live in Florida. We're trying to change it little by little by ourselves. So,
but it makes that change. Like I just referenced, I know there's other cities in Florida that are doing this, but I just referenced Jacksonville because like you typically think of Jacksonville and you don't think super progressive, right? It's like the opposite. But for a city like that to elect a LGBTQ identifying mayor, that is a big win. And
Absolutely.
so it does, it is important to have people who are living there fight. And it's important for us who don't live there to fight. So as an entertainer and an entertainer who happens to be in politics, I'm always going to do shows in the places where I feel like they need them the most. And obviously Wilton Manors is super queer and super progressive, but there's people from other parts of Florida who I imagine come in to Wilton Manors on the weekends because it's their safe refuge outside of where they live in Florida. And so I like to just show up and yeah, I think it's important.
Well,
There's parts of Broward County that's still conservative, believe it or not. Even when you get outside of Wilton Manors, there are still parts. And I'm from Kentucky. I'm from a state that is it's a diversified state. We had an out gay mayor for a while, but we had the first trans equality for housing law in the country, and it was in the Advocate years ago. But rural Kentucky is very conservative and very different. So we need people to go out. We need people to go and be entertainers like you, but at the same time change their minds a little bit and tell them what the story's about.
Well,
And
thank God Kentucky has Andy Bashir. Like, what a blessing.
yes.
Yep. I'm a Kentucky Colonel too, by the way. So from Steve Bashir, his father. Yeah. But
I did not know that.
We have to go to those states because I was one of those kids from a small town in Kentucky where I came to Florida and it was, wow, I get to be myself. I went on a cruise. Wow, I get to be myself. And there's so many people like that need that. So yes, it's constant. It's a constant change, a constant working on the ground. But as Hillary said in her concession speech, our country is more divided than we thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a fight every day that we have to pull it back. And to have people like you, Marti, going out on stage and even spreading these words of wisdom, I will say, it's a positive message. And you're very eloquent when you do it. So I can imagine your show must be, fantastic when you get out there and tell everybody to get out and vote. And, we have to protect our transgender friends and family members. It's awesome.
It's so important. And the show is, it's not, obviously I'm going to tell people to go vote and all that in the show, but also I really want my shows to be an opportunity for people to just find moments of joy, find moments of laughter, find moments of in the chaos of the news cycle, take an hour or an hour and a half, however long the show is going to be, to just have fun, bring your friends and have joy in whatever silly shit I do on stage.
Well, that brings me to my next question. What are some of the songs that you do in your show to get us all in, ready?
I do have a Kamala mix that I'll be doing.
Have a what mix?
A Kamala Harris mix. But it's like a mixture, right? So I do some like comedy mixes. I do some just straight through lip sync songs. I'll do some live songs as well. I'll be singing some live songs as well. And I really love connecting with the audience. I really love talking with the audience. I really love engaging with the audience, finding out where people are from, teasing them a little bit. Like I said, I don't do that like biting, Joan Rivers humor anymore. But I like to play with the audience, and I always try to bring it back to making fun of myself as well. So yeah, I just want people to find joy for the time that they're there.
Do you remember the first time you ever set foot on stage as your alter ego, Marti Cummings? Was it scary?
Oh, what was the first time?
That's a good question. I'm going to recycle that one. That's a good question.
I honestly, when was my first time that I got on stage in drag? It was so long ago. I don't know.
That's funny because I can imagine that it must be a moment where it's like, are they going to love me or hate me? And you obviously have risen to the top, so it's great.
I think it's because I had experimented with drag and played with it, and then I did this indie movie in drag and 30 Rock in drag, and so I had done those film things before I actually stepped foot on stage doing it. So that might be why I'm having a hard time remember, because I had like already done like some professional stuff in drag before like actually stepping foot. But I guess like the first time that that's not true. So I like the first time in a nightclub, I don't remember. But the reason I started doing drag initially, before I even did 30 Rock and this indie film, I got cast in an off-Broadway show where the character explored like gender, and so I had to do some form of drag in this musical, and that's what got me like really interested in it. But that was like with a script and like very structured, and so as an actor, I was like, oh, this is the role I'm playing. But then when I went into like the nightclub spaces and had to do the persona, yeah, sure, it was like nerve-wracking, you know. And there was moments where I completely fell on my face and was a mess and completely made a fool of myself. But I think one of the great ways of being successful is to fail really in a big way and learn from that. And
I've heard that. I've
yeah,
heard that with many
like,
people who are, top performers. Bette Midler, all of them said the same thing. They said you have to really fall on your ass before you rise to the top.
yeah, you have to, because how else are you going to learn and grow and like know like what works and what doesn't work, you know? And so I think failure is a big part of success, and it's what you do with that situation. And that's where you can build success from. You know, I think a lot of people get discouraged when something doesn't go their way. But I think it's okay for things to not always go your way. Use it as an opportunity to learn more about yourself and to grow.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've performed all over. Tell us about some of the places. You were mentioning them earlier where you've performed and have brought your show. They're a very exciting resume.
Oh, she's been around the world. I'm going to Antarctica in December in drag, which I think is wild. Yeah, so I work with Vakaya, which is an LGBTQ travel company. So I do a lot of their cruises. I was just in the Netherlands and Belgium with them. I was in the Galapagos Islands with them earlier this year. I went to Egypt and Jordan with them. So I've really gotten to travel the whole world because of these cruise gigs and gotten to do it in drag and perform, which is really exciting. But then outside of that, you know, one of my favorite places to perform is London. I love the Two Brewers and Halfway to Heaven. They're clubs that I work out there sorry, I got tongue-tied. Those are venues I've worked at in London that I always enjoy. I haven't been to LA in about 2 years, but every time I do LA, I have a great time. San Francisco, I love doing the Stud and Bow and Oasis, and I'm doing Milwaukee coming up in November, which I'm really excited for. But it's really interesting. Like I do all these big cities and these like Chicago is always so fun. But where I find like the real joy in performing is in I love Provincetown. I do Provincetown every summer. But
you're doing New Year's Eve, right? Are you doing?
And I'm doing New Year's Eve in P-Town also at the Crown and Anchor. But I love like small.
Crown and Anchor, yeah. Yep.
I love small towns that like maybe don't traditionally get drag. I love getting those like random gigs in like smaller cities, and I just find so much joy in that because it's getting to do drag in an area that might not always get it. So so while the big cities are fun, I like bringing drag to smaller areas.
Well, that kind of circles back to what you were talking about earlier, because when going to a small city, you are probably reaching so many people that don't have an opportunity to see a live show like yours. You know, I was reading something just last night that a person said about a Broadway performer, their dream was to see this person perform live. So by you going to these smaller towns, you're probably reaching a lot of LGBTQ youth that may never have the opportunity to see this. And
that's so
you're probably a role model for many people that you don't know.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I grew up, I lived in New York since I was 17. Like I said, I'm 37 now, so I've been here for a long time. I've lived in New York now longer than I did where I grew up.
Where was that?
I grew up in a little small town called Kennedyville, Maryland. We don't even have a stoplight. But the biggest town, like near us, is called Chestertown. And I think like 4,000 people live in Chestertown. It's very rural, very small. And I started join drag shows at the community theater I grew up in.
Wow.
Back home to do fundraisers to raise money for the theater. And those have been like the most special shows to me, is going back to my conservative farm town and getting to do drag. I worked with the local PFLAG there, which is like 12 people. And we got the town hall to agree to do the first Pride event there a couple years ago, which was amazing. And being in a town like that to do Pride is a huge deal. And yeah, that's probably like my proudest moment. Like out of everything I've done, like people always ask me like that question. And like I know like in our pre-chat right before we signed on, you said you were going to ask something about like what's my like biggest accomplishment or whatever. And a lot of people I think expect my answer to be like, oh, I ran for city council, or there's a documentary about me, or I did this on TV, or I did this theater thing, or I worked with this person, or blah 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 blah. And those are all amazing things that I'm really proud of, you know, like accomplishments that I'm like, oh, check check check, I did that, I'm so proud. But what I'm most proud of in my life, out of everything I've ever done in life, is going to my hometown and being able to do Pride there, and to have Broadway performers come with me to perform, having drag artists come with me to perform, and getting to have this community where there are queer people who might have never been seen before have an opportunity to be seen, and having people who aren't queer see that we exist, and we exist everywhere, whether you like it or not, or whether you know it or not, we exist everywhere. And
we're fun and fabulous.
Yes.
And we're fun and fabulous and normal. And I also remember we spend money when we travel, and yeah, those kinds of things too. It's we're just normal, regular people who just want to be normal, regular people, and that's
spreading love. That's it.
Yes, and that's what's so funny when like this argument from like conservatives is like, oh, they're deviants. And I'm like, no, I just want to like order sushi or cook at home and watch the Great British Bake Off. Like that's all I want to do. I just happen to want to do it with my partner, you know?
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, very boring, very normal.
Yeah.
Who are some of your good friends in the drag community? You've worked with many people. You were telling us earlier you worked with Bob.
We'll let this be the last question.
Okay. Really quick. We have to let you go, right? Oh my God. We could talk all evening. We could talk all day. So really quick association, Bob the drag queen.
Well, yeah, we had talked about Bob on our pre-call. Bob the drag queen and I had done a show together in Fort Lauderdale. We used to do a monthly show together in Philadelphia. We would travel to Philly together every month, and they're a really good friend of mine who I love, and I'm so proud of them. Now they're doing their big world tour, and they just performed with Madonna on their world tour, and I'm really proud of them. Monet is a good friend of mine. Jan and Jackie Cox are really good friends who I love, but also like the people who got me inspired to do drag in the first place are Sherry Vine and Coco Peru and Varla Jean Merman and Peppermint, who I love Varla. Girls Will Be Girls is one of the funniest.
Varla's our local gal.
She's amazing. So Dina Martina, who I love, you know, like I love these like legends.
Yes, not personally.
Yeah, I love all of them, you know, and it's been such an honor to get to work with all of them at one point or another in my career, which is, you know, I always like kind of geek. Like I was doing P-Town over the summer, and Varla came into my dressing room, and we've known each other for years. But when she says like, "Oh, hey Marty, how's your show?" Outwardly, I'm like, "Oh, you know, Varla," or whatever. Or like when they're out of drag, and I call them their non-drag name, which I won't say on a thing. But you know, it's always so nice. But inside, like the 19-year-old me who's just starting drag is still geeking out. Like, oh my God, Varla knows my name. Varla's seen my show. she's asking how I am. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, you know, like, and just geeking out. And yeah, I don't know. It's like fun to get to work with your idols.
Great. Well, before we
Well,
go, let's mention again the date, October
it
5th,
is
October 6th. There we go.
2024. In case somebody watches this next year, Saturday coming up at 8 o'clock at Pub on the Drive, one of our favorite places to go. So at the show, I expect to have the corner of the bar held for me. That is I call it. I'm Sheldon Cooper. I call it my 000 because that's the point piece right there on that corner. So it is.
Everybody watching, better go.
That's
Yes,
right.
I'm gonna look for you in that corner.
We have an article coming out this month in the magazine about Alex, the owner, and who is just an amazing individual and one of my favorite people here.
The sweetest. They're so sweet.
So we're so glad to have you down here in Wilton Manors, Florida. So welcome and visit Florida. If there's anything else, we'll be in touch. We are outclique.com, OUTCLIQUE. And Marti, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you here in just a few days. All right, everybody.
Guys, I'll see you
Marti.
soon.
It was
All right,
wonderful. Thank you.
See you soon. Bye-bye.